was a question. We have this law, we have the right. But is not that like in the Soviet anecdote? We have the right. But the question whether we can do that, the answer is no, because we don't have complete information, which is obvious to you and to me. But what should be, generally speaking, information in the 21st century in the country which belongs to the leading countries, which can deal with the digital information, which the country which has the best let's say, computer engineers, information technology specialists, and what can we in fact have, and how we can possess that, obtain this information, how it looks like, and how we can use this information. Can hear all of that from the director of the so-called non-existent public agency, but I'm positive that such an agency must be set up if you're talking about European modern country. This agency conventionally is called the Agency of the Geospatial Data, and this agency is going to be introduced to you by its director, its head, Andriy Tarnopolskyi. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say why this issue arises about the setting up of such agency? Because today, any issue associated with the information space in Ukraine are scattered, dissolved, and everybody who works the policy about the collection, gathering, processing of this data and the information access to the data, we do not have the coordination body. That's why today we have a big number of portals named unique national portal Ukraine, but all of them just contain a separate piece of information which are not make the whole picture, and there are no single standards how to reflect this information. In proceeding from that, from the above said, there is an understanding that without the setting up of the body, which would actually unite everything, generalize everything, coordinate all the actions, and form the policy. Without that, we hardly would be able to build the information system in Ukraine, which would be based on the modern European requirements, introduction of the single point of access to information, and just not roaming about the internet, seeking or looking for different portals. Why we are doing that? Why we are dealing with that? First of all, I would like to tell you about this kind of public organization, Geo Center of the Geopolitical Data. A group of different experts represent different spheres. They get together in order to help the country or the government to cope with the huge streams of information and to put everything in order and to create such a body in this country. Now I'd like to switch over to the presentation. What exactly the consultation, they need some consultation. The theme is well known to everybody, but let's kind of go in depth in the vision of that topic. We have a lot of information in our minds. Sometimes this information is structured, sometimes not. And we believe that while preparing or drawing up the draft law on those data, then the access to those data, we have to come up with what kind of a start point we are going to have. Are we going to build this system based on the principles of data exchange or on the principle of providing access to those data? What can we say today about the data exchange? There is a lot of different organizations, formations, ministries, departments, territorial communities which obtain or possess information. And this information, and they exchange those data in a very complex mode. What we believe to be drawbacks or shortcomings. The integration on the data integration is manual. Additional expenditures for the servers or server equipment. When we exchange the data, we take them to ourselves. We try to create some additional server resources for the storage of those data, and they also need some kind of supplementary software, and by all means administering of the exchange of data. What happens during the data exchange? Today we exchange the data, tomorrow they change, and those who already have those data, they are using outdated or non-correct data. Depending on the discretion of data on those data, the time before they start to use those data, and if you wish to work based on the exchange of data, then today we have to apply for that or send application. In other words, we do not have online access to those data which we need to use. Another problem, the absence of the single point of access to the data, and this absence of this point of access creates huge problems among the users. Absence of this point of access does not allow us to create the single point of access to servers. We understand that data could be interesting, but mostly they are interesting in order to base upon them some analytical things and form the services in the online mode. And definitely, we are talking about the absence of the opportunity of the fast data integration. And the last thing which I could say, that in this regime we have N+1 portals number. Here we selected 11 portals. It took us just, a small amount of time just to select that. What does it mean? Number one, portal which the Bureau of the Week believes to be something which is going to save a country. Portal Prozor, public procurement, and then e-data, web portal for the use of the public funds. Open budget, same but about the local budget. eGov org UA, portal of these public funds. Data Gov UA, this is the single web portal of the open data. Then eGov in Ukraine, public IT initiatives in Ukraine. Again, they actually talking about the IT initiatives in Ukraine. Cabinet or the Office of Electronic Services. This is in the Ministry of Justice. Also, they have 8 or 9 services offering. The next one, public cadastral map, which has been in existence for 3 years now, which deals with some kind of administrative breakdown, etc. The land, plots of land, etc. Geoportal, administrative territorial division of Ukraine. On the 1st March, it was been declared, and this portal was launched. Next one. Town planning cadastre of Kyiv, which actually generalizes a lot of the data contained in previous 9 portals and some more. The State Geodetic Network of Ukraine. This is a separate portal. I can say that it could be 5, 10, or 15% of the total amount of information resources exist in this country. Also, I would like to demonstrate to you another slide, the workstation, computer workstation, PC workstation, just demonstrate how it would be convenient to use it. What I'm talking about, if, for example, I would like to unite such resources, administrative, territorial, and budget, will fail. If I would like to unite statistics together with the administrative division and cadastry, I will fail, because the data in their majority available there, they have different standards of the data, display data imaging. We work today with one of the portal. It's our competency.
What we are talking about today, all people that use information, it's not enough for them just to look at the information on the separate topic. Here we have a social request for integrated information. This request is made by business, and request from the government for integrated information, because it is impossible to create analytical things and to analyze different types of situation, environmental situation, geodetic ecology situation without integrated data. Here we try to show two portals, one cadastre, land cadastre, and the next is state cadastre map. These are two simple portals that are used by many people. Many people use it and they see the information and they should integrate the data by themselves. How the access is built. We have those who obtain data. We have users and single communication corridor to this data. We have users of this data, and in the center we have center of processing of data, the function of which in automatic mode it integrates data from all the sources. Of course, we should have single standards, and many groups work on this. And all this will become possible when the law will be introduced. But in order to have this law, and to know how to build the system, we want to conduct consultations and to hear those who process data and those who use this data. And sometimes, and in many cases, these are the same people. They create data, and to create those data, they need other data, for example, some geodetic or maps materials and data. What are the advantages if we build a system of access to the data? First and the main is the access to through the single point of access, then online services and their creation, single point of access to service, and the absence of need of N+1 portals, and we should understand that the creation of the big number of portals, for example, regional for regional administrations, we need 550 portals, and we have actually have them, and also some storage of data, and also there should be the data should be supported by those organizations who provide this data, and they are responsible for the data provided. And here you may see not the list of the portals that we saw, 11 portals. We see element menu from the pilot project of building the infrastructure of geodetic data. We see the sets of data that we can build, and they are based on the system of data, and we can compile them, or we can separate them and form the sets of data we are interested in, or in which the user is interested in, whether it is state body, or user, or some production organization, or a person who is interested in something. And only in this case we can create and build services that online will provide us with any data or any information. Next slide. So here you may see, if we share data, left you see the facility near Levoberezhny station, near Vravarsky Prospect. We have the data for 2013 and 2014. We see that on the first slide you see the building site, and on the next year you can see the facility that was already built. And a person can get this data and can store it, and this person doesn't know when this data was reviewed. That's why they cannot use this data. Or separately, a person should have some other employees that will support this portals and search for new information, and they should archive this information and store this information. Next slide. What happens is that we have simplified access to integrated data. We have speed access 24 hours a day, 24/7, and we have cheap access because if we build it on a single standard, we need a computer instrument, not some sophisticated, just any gadget will do. So, and we have an opportunity to provide services and introduce them not on the thousands of portals, but to introduce services on one single portal. And some efforts were made, and not even in test, but in real production. On the cadastre map, we have 3 services that work. And the matter is that they should be broadened, and these services should be provided. And it improves the social climate in the state, and it ruins the platform for corruption, because you shouldn't go to some administrative body and to ask for some documents and to go there. It's very important for the countryside, where people had to go to the administrative center in order to have access to electronic services, and then they should go back, and everything is done in online. And also, it's not only about state bodies and local governments, it's a separate part of users, and others are citizens and organizations. Next slide.
Here we actually show those issues which we would like to discuss. It would be very important to know your opinion regarding this specific problem, because we believe that the law can be a top quality one when it is going through some kind of discussion by the professional expert community, so that later we did not say that if we had this discussion, maybe the law would be better, etc., etc. Thank you. Thank you, Andriy. The floor is given to thank you, but please turn on the mic. You have about 5 minutes at your disposal. Okay, I'll try to be laconic. I myself, to a certain extent, I'm a professional in this sphere. I have quite a rich experience. I would like to say that if you're talking about the objective and the goal, why we should create such things, we can say there are certain things which are being camouflaged, or they are not shown on purpose, or they do not understand what's going on completely. The first point is the slogan of this meeting, 21st century, and access to data instead of data exchange. For about 5 last years, I've been using this term, also in relation to the land cadastre or other cadastres, when they were working on the resolution of the government exchange of the procedure of exchange of data. We should not, I said, we did not have to approve not the procedure, but the exchange or the access of data. That's why I support not just the exchange of data is required, but the procedure how to do that. In other words, we should not monitor or follow the data. We have to establish the the order or the procedure of this access. What Andriy Tarnopolskyi was mentioned. There is something does not correspond to the different parts because nobody monitored that. But we should not forget that using the modern technology, we can actually talk about some kind of subscription or dissemination of the data. Then in a certain department or by some of the resolutions of the government, it should be mentioned such and such office or departments have the right and must obtain any information about the change of the information. If you subscribe to dissemination of the information or the send the information, you will be drowned in this information. The same manner, any system can monitor those positions and send to the users the relevant data. Another position, that we are going to create an information system or an information system. Again, here we can understand different way this term information system, generally speaking. And anything can be called the system, but when we use the term information system, then in the modern world, when we have an access to internet, they do not call internet information system. It is called the information environment. Most cloud technologies, sometimes we do not even know what's being done and where this or not data is stored by the services, spatial services included. They take the information from different sources and provide the integrated information. This technology is called the technology of obtaining data, intellectual processing of data mining, actually. And it's understandable that in this specific direction, the whole world is being developed. If somebody tried to or regulate something in internet, and it would be a global UN agency for IT technologies, maybe it would not develop, generally speaking. But since not only in Ukraine, but also in Europe and the United States and elsewhere, there is a big number of portals. Nobody can prohibit Google or Yandex or any other search engines, especially when there is such a technology, not only can use, but also they share your data in the social networks. OpenStreetMap, for example. This is the first example when data are produced and used by everybody. And they call the crowd sources, and everybody can send the right to register, etc. Since I do not have a lot of time, the last point I would like to voice here is something when the information which is available to different departments, let's put it this way, different organizations which produce the data, ministries, departments, offices, whatever, they have different data, open, public data, closed data, but the most important that they produce those data not only to demonstrate those, but they use those data. They model or they simulate something, they model them during decision-making process and the system for decision-making. They really require the integrated operational information and special services, which maybe will be created not in the near future, like virtual services in the network available. So in order to put everything in order, let's say, uniting the experience of all the global experience, including let's say the geospatial data all the way down from the United States to Europe, when a lot of the national and international structures exist, and we are talking about the United European structure inspired when all the data must be integrated. But nobody in Europe says that let's create a single big center and we are going to send the information to this center where it's going to be integrated, processed, etc. No, they said let's take care of the terms of reference or technical specifications for the storage of the data, etc., etc. And each country They have it there in the GI based on their laws and legislation, but in order to publish the data for the whole community, they have to stick to observe specific standards. Information is going to be topical only then when it's going to be updated next to the source of information. But providing this information, in the United States there is a Federal Bureau of Geospatial Data. Employing 26 people there, dealing with the procedure, the order. In other words, they take care of the pulse of the data. Not a single byte of data takes any kind of the money from the budget if it does not correspond to the existing standards and not registered in the clearing centers. And the last point, when we are talking about the single point of entry, we are not talking about the single data base for the whole country. The single entry point is the something associated with the clearing center, in which we inherited from the banking system. There are banks which have money, and those who would like to take the loans. And there is the intermediary clearing center, which makes both ends meet. I mean, the banks with the money or with special interest for the loan, and the person who would like to take a loan, they apply to the clearing center, and the clearing center actually would connect the holders of the data with the user or users of those data. Access to data, it's mentioned in our thesis, is multi-level. General, public, specialized, etc., etc. And all those different levels demand different services, different technologies. Without exchange of data, we cannot do, because in the professional, scientific world, the system of support of decisions, we not only have to see the pictures, but we also have to have the data per se in order to use those data to be able to take care or carry out the very complicated operations related to the simulation process or modeling. And those are my comments regarding the perhaps setting up the body or the agency which will be responsible for pursuing such a policy in order to create and support access to data at different levels, including the exchange of data. Because when we use the term, or we say that access to exchange, this can be used only in certain contexts, because exchange of data has been always existing. For example, when we send our request, it's already there. Not to say that we would like to obtain those data not in the register format, but in very complicated model forms. So we should not, against the background of the opportunity, topicality, and possibility to resolve the problem, we should not simplify this problem. The data are produced, they are needed, much needed by producers, they are being used, and the duplication redundancy will be there, because the data, for example, is better needed by the mayor for the whole city, or any minister would require those. We are talking about their respective analytical center, and it's clear that the access to data allows us to provide unified manner data from different sources. Thank you. The floor is given to Ms. Natalia Zakharchuk. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this very important topic, but as I say, we should have done that yesterday, day before yesterday yet. I present here a European project which has been in place for 4 years now. The environmental protection regarding the river basins. You understand what we are talking about. Everything what takes place in our territory. And in the bottom line is we are talking about the potable water. We use both the surface water and the underground water. I would like to thank the Deputy Director of the Dnipro River Basin who invited me here, but we won't be able to introduce here any European directives. We are dealing with the water directive, for example. We will never be able to do that unless we introduce this kind of very important thing is access to data. When we launched our project, we encountered the problem of obtaining data. If you're talking about this monitoring information which exists, you're talking about any ecological problems, in this specific case, water-related. There are laboratories, organizations, everybody works good or bad, it's a different story. But we cannot get that information. In European countries, they can actually access the hydrometeorological service and get the data. Another point, how we're going to use this data, we have to pay for that, and the request for those, but again, if you're talking about the primary data, they can annex us immediate access to that, you can use that. We paid for that information. They grant European project which came here to this country to help us to introduce this kind of European legislation. They paid the money to the public organizations, to the state organizations. Hydrometeorological service do not provide any information. You have to pay immediately. They are poor, nobody supports them, and in this way they try to make some money, you know. There is no methodology of assessment of the provided information. Is there, within the framework of different projects, try to take this assessment evaluation. We have to pay for everything. And within our project, we have a huge information. Now, the question arises who we are going to share this information with when the project is completed. Again, we are talking about more larger scale, more expensive effort. We are going to continue our work on gathering the data. We are going to introduce the project to create this single platform for the management of the river basin in order to collect the information regarding the water and other resources. For example, the Dnipro Basin management actually opened doors for us, and we are going to cooperate. By the way, I myself was part of the Ministry of Ecology. There is none of the information. You call to local localities and say where this small river is situated, which they mentioned there is some problem because it's not shown even in the map. And you just trying to, to start from scratch, and don't know where you are. I represent ecological service. We have to do something about that. We are prepared to give certain information. Now we face the situation when the European agencies are going to provide this information. Because none of our own national bodies can support this initiative because there is no money, no license programs, none other services do we have. I still cannot make sure about this kind of crisis center they provided. They invested a lot of money 5 years ago, and that's it. Corruption, everybody tried to stick this information, being the owner of this information, because this means certain money. We have to do something about that, and we agree to help, to lend you help in hand, do something what we can. And thank you for the opportunity given to me to join you in discuss this very important issue. Now the floor is given to Mr. Mutsky, and then we're going to have a session.
So these are all producers, and I'm the only user. That's why I want to tell you that in my work I encounter the problem of data. Every time I need some data, I need some geodetic data, maps, and access to registers of property, property rights, users, and other information. So this is just work that should be carried out daily. And the lion's share of my work I spent in vain just searching for the data. Where can I find it? The state provided money for cartographic work, and do I have access to maps? No, I should go and ask. I spent months to get some data. And today I see that if I have this access to this communicator, I will be able to do it in several clicks. And that's all. I will not have any problems. I want some people to stay in queues to ask something, and I won't bribe, and I won't help corruption here in this country. If I have access, I pay, I get the information, and then I work. And this is from the part of the user. This is the main thing. What we get in the result of this introduction of such work and such system. Also, I would like to note that symbolically we sit here in the hall of the Center of Anti-Corruption. Whenever battle corruption, if we cannot do anything with it. If you need information, so you get information, but you should pay. So we got accustomed to it. Only automation, computerization of this process, separation of the public servant and the user can overcome this shameful situation. If we need a document, if we need some, and the user can get it from the computer, and you can go, for example, to your neighbor, to the village council, and you won't need any queues. And if there will be such an opportunity to get all this through one click for some money, then this is the only way to fight such shameful thing as corruption. I thank you a lot, and I hope that this system will come to our life and will be in our daily life. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, dear colleagues. And now we start discussion. We have about 20 minutes. Those colleagues who are present in our hall, please, you can ask a question or you can comment. Good afternoon. Sergei Vasilchenko, Ukrainian Center of Social Data. It was interesting to hear to you, but the problem is different. Open data is discussed a lot, but these are things that there are some data that is present and you should have an access to it. But who will collect the data? Do we have resources to collect the data? And when we are speaking about State Statistics Bureau, they have they plan reduction, and farmers, they write complaints because they cannot send the data because they don't have internet, and the post offices are far away. So the salaries are about 2,000 hryvnias, and no one wants to work as a programmer for such a salary. We have problems in data collection because people don't have internet, and the minimal salaries are there, and no one wants to work there. Some data is not collected at all, and about some data should, and from 30 sets of information, only 10 are can be provided. And we have mistrust to the state bodies here in this country, especially in the sphere of economy. And de facto, people, they hide information about exchange of information, and if there will be some rubbish, so it will be shown, and no one speaks about really important things. And for what resources this system is going to be developed, and openness of data. So when the state constantly reduces the taxes, so people hide their income, and no one discusses problems like this. Short comment. You asked the question correctly, and of course we deal with these issues, and a draft law is prepared. on geodetic data that will answer these questions. It should be decided at the level of the law, and then this issue can be solved. So this is the rule. Secondly, the collection of data. You tell about it, but you should know that every day data is collected, and every minute the data is collected. But the data is in different standards and different formats, and we started to work to create a system in the system of energy, and for 3 months we were not able to combine the data on the facilities and the objects that are there, because everyone represented the information differently and provided different interpretation of the data. So the collection of data should be registered and should be regulated by this law, and the state should establish rules not only for collecting the information, but on information exchange also. The quality of data is also important. This is the main part in the assessment of data, and by this draft law, it is provided. It envisages the quality of data through automized system of quality management, and the rest of the issues can be solved. For example, the enterprise hides some things, and the law creates the situation that this they can hide if law forbids this. And agro holdings, for example, they do not report on the use of lands for some crops, for some cultures of crops, and this information is absent. You can de facto find it. This can be distance zone. Distance monitoring, and then we may see what crops are grown and what yield can be gotten from this territory. So you tell about the right things, and they are envisaged in the draft law that we are going to discuss with the public in order to and the first roundtables, first consultations, these are the starting points that identify the problems, and then we are going to solve these problems and find ways how to solve them.
I just would like to add to what has been said. You understand that such information the top echelons of power of the Ukraine do not have, and where it can obtain it. The working day of the President of the United States starts at about 6 o'clock in the morning. He gets the whole picture of the world and the major events in the country and the imminent threats, let's say, in due time, and try to persuade the President and the Council of Defense and Security to create some kind of the special, let's say, expert room, but it still is not there. For example, we know that somewhere we have some problems. Somewhere is a flood, somewhere there is something is blasted, whatever. But this is the issue of our national security. If we do not the information about the situation with our national structure, you remember how much information had, for example, some of the water intake structures was in danger, whatever. But we do not have the information which can help us to foresee this kind of situation. And I remember what would happen to Kyiv if this kind of the weather, and we can still remember inundations, or let's say different floods which took place often in the Dnipro, and we try to foresee the situation and model what would happen if the water level rises certain centimeter, half a meter, or a meter. But we have to do something about that. We cannot in the country which is in the turmoil of the warfare, how the president, as the prime minister of the Council for National Security and Defense, can do something which do not have this information available. They cannot do anything, and I can tell without integrated information, single information, nothing should be done. I'm not really talking about some kind of egotism or let's say selfish interest We have to do something about that if we're talking about this century, about efficient and modern country. Next comment, please. Igor Strilets, Dnipro Basin Management Deputy Head. Maybe I'm that one, that corruption is who actually is the owner of that information. One of those, okay. This Dnipro Basin Management is, from technological point of view, is prepared to provide this information. I'm talking about the information about the condition of the water, and we can do that anytime at all. And the second important information, the areas of the possible inundation or flooding, I'm talking about the Dnipro River bank, 1% provision once every 100 years it happens. Then the information about all the water users, when they take this water and where they discharge the water to. We are working this information. From the institution point of view, we do not know where this information we should send to and how to do that. And the latest example, which was very resounding in the internet, the storage of mineral fertilizers in Novoselki. So the question is, who issued that permission in the area of the water intake area? I mean, I'm taking the resolution of Cabinet Ministers number 2. You know, the people have their own farmers plots of land, and the farmers actually lease this land, and they plow the land, and they prepared, they purchased the mineral fertilizers in the spot which is 500 meters from the Desna River. So who is it to be blamed? The farmer who actually spent his money, plowed the land, and he hired some of the premises to use for the storage of the. Did anybody see this data? This is not our. Okay, somebody actually shared those data. Did anybody had a chance to pass a certain decision or not? Maybe this is the Ministry of Ecology which should know. You blame a farmer or anybody else, but if it just but in the end nobody is at blame, because nobody knew about that, because those data were not available. We are talking about the area which is the strict control zone. Again, it's prohibited to use that land for plowing or for using the mineral fertilizers. I would like to draw your attention to the monitor. You see, this is hydrological area in the Fasiv district. Can you please add there the preserve area or the sanitary protection area? You see a different color. The domes of the symmetries, whatever. Let's see what kind of plot of lands find themselves or are located in the protected areas. You can see how many plots of land add to those the already area under construction with the house. Can you zoom it out? You see, this is inside the zone. Please add orthophoto plan. Scale 1 to 2000. You see? And this, if you're talking about access to information, by the way, this information we obtain from the databases from internet. You see, let's see what kind of house we have in this sanitary protection zone, and we have to see who is this citizen, why he used this plot of land, what kind of house he built there, etc., etc. This is the tool of access to data. This is the time of access to data and the result which we can see. And we are talking about access via internet. We can see that, we can think about that, analyze and pass the managerial decisions based on this information. Maybe somewhere up in the top echelons of power, they would say that we can't, just to clean this sanitary protection zone and to eliminate everything, but we have to talk about the people, their children, and everybody else. Another short comment. Everything looks nice, and my colleague was absolutely correct to say that the instrument tools are top class, but we do not have the necessary data. Whatever has been demonstrated a few minutes ago to you by my colleague Vladimir, and this is data regarding one district. We do not have such data for a region. We can actually, fingers on one hand will be enough to give you examples of these data available. The problem costs a lot, even to build the sanitary protection zones or the preserved zones, etc., around the special regime of use. We have millions upon millions of those. If we were talking about design documentation or other type of documentation, they're not available. To implement the project for the protection zone, it's a separate project of water protection. Can you show us the protection areas near the rivers? They are installed according to the law, but there is a different methodology which can take into consideration, let's say, the slopes, the different soils and landscape features, etc. We had a special organization used to have, and there are some methodologies approved in place. But this is kind of simplified image. You take this map, nobody knows when. You should not simplify the problem. Since we have here consultations, we have to make some references, right? You can see this part of this kind of near the coastline or near the river protection strip. Based on the landscape, we take in consideration the width of the water neighboring protection belt. In first district, we needed only 2 hours to spend it. No, yes, we did have some preparatory period, and yes, we are going to further specify that. But in my opinion, we have those consultations in order to determine the ways and the opportunities to create such an information resource. Thank you, Andriy. We have about 8 to 10 minutes, so please be brief and introduce yourselves. Viktor Milevich, representative of the Research Center of XXI, who are producers of the integrated data for the oil products market in Ukraine. We do appreciate the efforts of the management of Yaroslavna Collegium and the Geospatial Data Center regarding the initiative, and we do support this initiative at the expense of the. Maybe we can cooperate with you further on in order to present integrated data for the oil product market, speaking about the retail prices for the fueling stations. Lyudmila Denisuk, president of the group company. I would like to say, for a couple of years I worked in the Kyiv state administration, deputy of the mayor of Kyiv. I also dealt with the following issues: business in the industry, regulatory policy. I myself dealt with the sphere of business and science. The first resolution of the Kyiv administration was something like that: to make available access to each businessman to all those premises which are part of the communal ownership. The same holds for the plots of land. If the entrepreneur could actually in the inline mode enter internet and see the plot of land or some business space and the price for that, etc., etc. Same holds for the land. I talked with Alexander Yefimовich. Why? all those resolutions are being hidden or eliminated or not signed, because all this is beneficial to somebody. And what you're doing today, Mr. Andriy and Mr. Alexander, this is a kind of a real breakthrough, leading us to an absolutely different level of our activities. First of all, I would like to address for the business. Number two, this is useful for the ecology, and it's actually common sense is behind that. We are going to encounter a lot of barriers or hindrances. Let's say I cannot do that, or there is no money. But if we adopt such a law and we make it law the way it should be, then we can change the situation here. Otherwise, nothing is going to be changed in this country. That's why I believe the step you are taking is very important. In all the society, intelligent society, have to support you. We have 5 minutes left. Any other comment or clarification or questions? If none, or maybe final comments, and we are going to adjourn our meeting. The last slide of our presentation, please put on the screen. I would like to just to voice out those questions which were proposed for discussion. Selection of the model, which is in the way of creating the national system of geospatial data. I already mentioned that what is in our way, the absence of the state policy in this area. Without such agency, without a specific law, without resolve the financial issues. By the way, speaking about the money, we are talking about the huge investments into modernization, starting from the district administration all the way up to the presidential administration or the cabinet of ministers. So if we consolidate all that money, all those funds, if we consolidate the efforts of all those people who work in this sphere, or the IT sphere, then everything will be easy for us to implement, because we have top-notch experts who work with the standards, who are part of the international standardization committees, including IT or informatization. My colleague already mentioned that UN does not regulate internet, but they 3 or 4 years ago they set up the committee on the management of the geospatial information, and such continental offices have been established in different continents, Asia, America, and Africa, and they go through this way through standardization of data. If we do not lag behind in this specific endeavor, actually, our country technologically finds itself on a very high level, and the first task we face, the adoption of the law on the geospatial data system and the use of the data and the ways how to use them, and you ask the question regarding that, the decision institutional support and financial support, etc. Without that, a new policy in this country named Ukraine will not be possible. We are going to repeat all the time the same mistakes, and again. I would like to draw attention to those issues for discussion, because they deal with the fact what is going to be hindrances or barriers to us. Very often, in our way, is not kind of conscientious resistance, or some kind of the lack of the desire on the part of the community, or corruption, but sometimes the lack of decisions which are not voiced. We do not take any steps to search for this kind of the common resolution which would be beneficial to everybody. Some arguments or some kind of benefits which is going to happen as a result of adoption of such a decision, making such a decision. I believe, this is the task for the consultation. The next 3 consultations we are going to have with the stakeholders. Unfortunately, today we had only one representatives who voiced his position, which does not coincide with the position of the presenters. It's very good that Mr. Anatoly, that you are here, and unfortunately we do not have anybody else. And I hope that we are going to have some more consultation regarding the financial issues. We are going to inform everybody about that, because our task is to do something properly in such a way that to make it, I mean some kind of decision which has to be taken in the sphere. Today we are talking about integrated geospatial data. We are working, we have the Minister of Ecology and the President, and everybody works in the same regime or the same mood. First, we had the presentation of political agenda, our objective, what kind of problems we are going to resolve, and how we are going to do that. It's regulatory way, whatever administrative way, what structures, procedures, standards, skills will be removed, or whatever. Those we are going to have a real detailed description. So far, we do not know any details. We do not know those details. We do not understand how it's being done. And what is being done. Again, we are coming to a close, and myself as the chairman of the Yaroslavna Collegium, I would like to thank everybody for your participation in this kind of working procedure, and thank you very much, Anatoly. A short remark. I'm not against the idea or something like that, I deal with a national structured geospatial data system with some kind, starting from the year 2002. I'm against when you raise the issue that we have to create the single data bank for the whole country. We cannot put this issue this way. Where are you going to obtain those data? The word and paradigm about the infrastructure. We have to create infrastructure, the structure. We have to create the pipelines and the junctions, information nodes, so to say, according to the existing regulations. We can create the transport infrastructure and create one bus stop which is going to serve everybody. But this is not something which we need to do. Also, we have to adopt some laws and the norms and standards and make everybody work along the same lines. This is the policy of our infrastructure. Thank you very much. And this brings us to the end, to the close of this briefing. Colleagues, we are going to have the next briefing in 8 minutes from now.